Now, one of the things that he plans to do is raising taxes, and this is on anyone paying more than $400,000, or actually generating more than $400,000 a year. And I wanted to ask you about this because instead of complaining about higher tax of 400,000, I guess it's mind-boggling to me of why rich people, and I wouldn't say $400,000 if you live in California, New York City. I know that's a ton of money, but that's considered middle class in some of these areas, which is insane when you think that's how expensive it is to live in these areas. But how rich people have suddenly become the enemy and need to pay taxes. It's bad. They have to share everything. I mean, what are your thoughts on this? Because that's something that we are going to get. Biden has said, and let's say if Biden wins, because if Trump wins, right there, we're going to see kind of like the status quo, whatever. But there will be certain sectors that benefit and certain ones that don't benefit. But let's start with taxes, and tell me your thoughts on that.
Well, it's pretty crazy to me because I love how all the rich guys like Buffett and saying that we should tax the rich more. None of them send an extra check into the treasury. So you can pay as much as you want to in taxes. You can send all kinds of money to them. So that cracks me up from the get-go. The underlying momentum here that's scary to me is the back and forth between the haves and the have-nots. So like I'm 34. If you're younger than me, there's a lot more of this entitlement. Like younger friends of mine have hey, they're rich because they're bad, or they're rich and that's bad. And it's like, well, you have this bigger concept that the economic pie is only so big. And if somebody else is making more than you, then you are going to make less by definition. That's not how it works. That's what's really scary to me. From a higher tax base, yeah, there'll be some winners and losers, but the market's already going to price that in, I think. I don't think there's going to be anything shocking on that if capital gains go up and all that, but you're going to see some volatility around that, of course, which is exactly what's going to happen.
I could tell you, if we go, these are the numbers. These are the numbers that you're going to see based on a Biden win. Hear me out first. I'm just going to tell you how to play it. So if you live in California, the top tax rate is going to be 62.6%. New Jersey, 60%. New York, 58%. New York City would be 62% if you live in New York City. But New York, 58%. And if you look at the top federal tax rate under Biden, is going to be overall 49.6%. So 50%. And they say, well, if you make over 400,000, 50%. But again, I won't even beat that point to death. The fact that if you run your own business and you turn out to be successful and you work your ass off, I mean, you have to take time away from something. There's a little time I take away from my family. The benefit is I want to leave them something that's great with Curzio Research, be able to support them and make sure that, they're okay in the future. But the more successful you get, you're seen as the enemy these days, which is insane. But when I look at those tax rates, the first thing that comes out to me is, why would anyone live in New Jersey? I mean, yeah, I can see California, New York, but Jersey, really, Daniel? Again, that's my New York coming out because, New Jersey just tries to be like New Yorkers, but they never will be, and yet they're getting taxed like them. So why don't you just live in New York? It's more things to do. But this tells me right here that the rich people are going to leave these states, okay? And we're seeing that now. And you maybe they don't, but I think it's pretty logical to assume that that's what's going to happen. Now, where are they going to go, right? It's what states are they going to go to? And if you look at, these people, and if they're moving their companies, I know, let's say the rich is the enemy, but they do provide lots of jobs for people. So are they going to move jobs out of California, Jersey, New York, and into, we talked about this before, Daniel, like the no income states, right? No income tax states. Like, for example, I've done it went to New York and Florida, to Florida. And, you might see on the East Coast in New Hampshire or maybe Texas. But California, you can go to Washington, Nevada, and then you have Midwest, South Dakota, Wyoming, Alaska. Some of the others have no income taxes. But I would think this is pretty much a certainty, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you see that already. Who just bought the Panthers a couple years ago? The hedge fund guy. Tepper?
Tepper.
Yeah.
Tepper, yeah.
Didn't he move out of Jersey, or he just moved south?
I think he moved out of Delaware. I think they would have
high you just pack up and go to Florida. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's only going to continue. And then you have a huge problem with the people there in a economic cycle, because if the people that you're only going to raise the taxes on a small number of people, because you can't do it on a large base because then they won't vote for it. So if those small amount of people pack up and leave, obviously you're not going to have that tax revenue anymore. So it means you're going to a bigger deficit, which means the government has to step in and do even more to fix the problem that it's trying to fix anyway.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science. It's actually buffoonery, but that's what we do.
And we've heard this argument before, but things are different since the pandemic, right? I mean, look at California, where you have the wildfires, you have your electricity getting shut off. Again, I have a lot of friends in California. I think it's one of the most beautiful states in the world.
I have to interrupt you. I will say, I'm sorry.
In the United States, go ahead.
When that governor in California tweeted out that it was like coming up at 3:00 and everybody's got to turn, use less power and all that, that is embarrassing as all get out to me. Like, how in the hell does California tell the people? I thought it was a joke. I'm sorry, that's a tangent.
It's a new.
You can't.
It's a new world.
That's unbelievable.
Or you're gonna shut their electricity and water off if there's social. Like, don't have a birthday party for your kid. Like, forget it. Like the place I told you at the opening, they would have shut the whole everything. Electricity would have went off in a heartbeat, right?
Bring your own beer. That's old stuff. Now you got to bring a freaking generator to party because they're going to shut us down.
Yeah, but when you're looking at these states in New York City, they look at the crime rate has gone up. I lived there, and back then I didn't think you got what you paid for. And I mean, paying, and that was over 10 years ago now, about 10 years ago. I didn't want to pay $600,000 for a shack, right? For a home. That's what you really pay there. And that's not even, I'm not talking about New York City, but just in Queens or Brooklyn, Bronx, the boroughs. Everything just started booming there. And I was like, this is crazy. These houses are 125 years old. Now, at least in New York City, you say, I'm going to pay that money. Why? Well, you got all the restaurants. You got that, the atmosphere is amazing. It was, 24 hours. You can go out, get anything you want to eat, be entertained. I mean, even certain places in California, when I look at these states and how the conditions are deteriorating, which I think nobody could argue, right? Not in every area, but nobody could argue that they have deteriorated significantly. And there's an argument it may not come back as soon. And it makes sense for a lot of people to say, you know what, I'm out of here. And we've seen it from both areas. I mean, if you're looking at Southampton, I think enrollment, Southampton is Suffolk County outside New York City. You have Nassau County, you have Queens, Nassau County, and then you go all the way out to Suffolk. That's where the Hamptons are. But enrollment for these schools was up tremendously. Enrollment for school, meaning you're taking your kid out of their normal school, and your enrollment means that's, it's not permanent, but your kid's going to be going to that school for to the end of this next summer, and who knows where they're going to be. But if they're moving out because of this, you could argue, you could bitch, you could say, well, what are you talking about? This is Biden's plan. I'm not. This is what it is. It is what it is. That's it. I mean, he's saying, we're not going to have taxes being raised, but capital gains taxes are going up. And he says, well, it's going to have for more than 1 million people. Capital gains taxes are going to go from 23.8% to nearly 40%. I mean, capital gains tax, you know how much that is? And a lot of that money is being reinvested in more companies, being reinvested in your own company, being able to hire people. I mean, I don't know. I'm not too sure. For me personally, I would say the distribution of wealth has never worked in any country ever. But it is what it is. And again, I don't want to get political here, but I would be focusing on, Daniel. I mean, real estate in Florida is booming right now. In some of these
no income. You need to buy a house.
You need to buy a house. You need to buy assets. And that's where we're going with this. You could bitch and say, well, I didn't want to vote for Biden. I can't believe he's raising these taxes. Or you could say, okay, this is what's going to happen. Here's what he outlined on his site about his tax policy. And know that if this is the case, and by the way, if these rich people move out of these states, that means they're going to provide less jobs for people, which means that's less tax revenue coming into the states, which means that they're going to raise taxes even higher. Simple, right? I mean, can't really disagree with that or argue that, right? That just makes sense. You need money coming in, and a lot of that money you're pushing these people out, which is insane. But look to buy real estate in a lot of these areas. Because I got to tell you, I live in a small little island. It's booming. They're building houses, houses going on sale, and 3-4 days later, and they're getting $20,000-$30,000 more than what they were asking. I don't see that stopping anytime soon. I mean, it's just a matter of where you're going to put the capital, and it's going to be allocated to different areas. Now, we can talk about another issue, Daniel, which is alternative energy, which I know you love talking about politically.
Oh gosh, yeah.
But you're looking at money being pushed into solar and wind. Again, this is our base load power like nuclear, but which is fine, but there is going to be more money pushing into this market with a Biden win. And I'm interested to see what happens with natural gas and oil stocks, right? I mean, you're looking at whatever it is. I mean, yeah, Biden saying he was not going to allow fracking, and same with Kamala Harris, no fracking. Now it's no fracking on federal lands. Whatever it is, it's going to result in less fracking at a time when oil companies at balance sheets are trash. They were trash when oil was at $75, $80. They were just, they're highly leveraged. So it's interesting, right? Because you talked about, Daniel, what's happening right now with some of these bigger players.
Yeah, it is. I mean, looking like you said earlier, if you accept the polls and let's say Biden wins and you get this blue wave, well, if you're a CEO of a energy company, it's not like you don't know what's going on right now. It's not like you don't know the pain, and yet there are multi-billion-dollar deals going on. So, Chevron bought Noble Energy, Devon Energy, which was a former pick in a well-run company, just in a tough environment. They bought WPX, and then today, what broke today, Frank? ConocoPhillips bought somebody, and they're all using their stock as currency. Which is interesting to me because oil's still down, 30% from the beginning of the year. And if you're thinking, okay, you're doing these major deals, you're going to shore up some assets, they're still looking forward. And that's what's interesting. Anytime a market drops 30 and 40%, you better start going and looking because there's deals. And it's interesting to me to see a lot of these deals going on right now when times are tough, but things are coming back slowly, and you have the election right around the corner. So it's interesting on that side, but it shows you while it'll be some headwinds, nothing's going to happen overnight, or at least that's what the market is telling us at this point.
I don't know how to play this as an investor yet, because I know a lot of these companies can't afford to drill less, right? They need to drill to make money, and they need oil prices a lot higher, right? If you're looking at people are going to cite the Permian, where there's a few places that you could make money fracking for $35, $40, but mostly it's higher than that for most places. But in terms of not playing it, so you are going to reduce the amount of fracking, right? We can all agree with that, whether it's going to be on a crazy scale or just a limited scale, which is going to result less fewer profits, but fewer wells being drilled, which is going to lower the supply. And then we have the economy opening up here and open up globally as well, because some of these companies have global operations. So you could say, wow, these companies' profits are going to get hurt significantly, yet it should result, right, in oil and natural gas prices going higher.
Yeah, that's the Willie. Hey, why would this make any more sense than everything else in our screwed up world?
That's why you're probably seeing, and a lot of these, and you brought this to my attention too, because I again, we're looking at the markets all the time and go crazy. I'm actually going away to Denver and into Wyoming to visit a site. It's going to be my first trip since COVID. People who are meeting me there are coming from Canada, which means they're going to have to be put on quarantine as soon as they get back into that country. So they have it worse than me, but yeah, I'm looking forward to that opening up. But the deals that are happening in this space are all being done for stock, right? They're using their stock, and there's a reason why you're going to see even more of these deals. I mean, you have a few companies have amazing balance sheets, much better than everybody else. The Conocos, Devon has a good balance sheet. You're looking at Chevron. I'm surprised Exxon's not going to come in, and I think they're going to have to at least cut that dividend in half. I don't know how they can afford it. I don't know. It's crazy. But now you're consolidating. What does that do, right? It results in you having more assets, which we just talked about how important it is to have assets, right? Assets are going to be inflated with low interest rate environment. Lower overhead. You're going to be able, unfortunately, to get rid of a lot of people, so you're going to have overlapping divisions. And now these guys are going to be in position to where the strong are going to survive and get bigger and bigger, right? So, I mean, I would expect a lot more deals, right, going forward, Dan. But again, you may have a different opinion than me.
No, I would. I mean, I think the big picture, what seems too easy to me, and not to sound arrogant, but the big picture is the bigger and better are going to continue to get bigger and better. And so what bugs me from all kinds of different viewpoints, depending on if you're looking at energy or investors just in general, is, you're not going to have much of a middle class anymore. So there's either going to be giant, well-run companies, big investors, or there's going to be the little people. And that's going to be a real difficult. I mean, we're not complaining here. That'll make it a little difficult on our job to pick the better ones. But I think you're just going to continue to have a discrepancy there, and it's going to grow and grow and grow between haves and have-nots. And I don't think that's any different from the energy sector to the auto sector in a sense of how that. Well, that's a bad analogy actually because they're already got your big players, but it's just we're going to see winners and losers speed up, I think, and that's kind of scary.
It's separation, like just like we saw in healthcare, right? There's so many different segments. So, of course, online healthcare, the insurers are doing great. Other areas, especially those that provide surgeries that aren't necessity right now, are really getting hurt. Again, I've been to hospitals with my daughter a few times, and compared to when I went when my mom was in ICU for 4 months until January, thank God she got out by mid-January before all this stuff really hit. At the end of January and February for the U.S. and coronavirus. But, it was jam-packed then compared to now. You can get spaces wherever you want because everything's COVID-related. You had to push off. David's saying, I read studies about the screening that they're pushing out, the screening for breast cancer and stuff, and how that could result in major problems, right? So there's different sectors in healthcare that benefit. Just like, if I would look at this, I'd say the large caps are in a much better position. There's pure plays in fracking that might not work out as good, like Continentals and stuff. But, the major players, we're talking about Devon, even offshore names, if prices start going higher, that's going to put Diamond Offshore, Transocean was gotten, decimated. These guys need 60 minimum, $6 oil prices to make money. I mean, you have your hedges in place that run out after 12 to 18 months. They've all run out. But if oil prices go higher, you're going to see these companies get a bid, while I would think the oil services companies, I don't know if you took a look at them, they have been decimated. I mean, these companies, you look at the apples, right, Daniel, with the market caps on apples and $2 trillion.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at Schlumberger is the biggest player. I think they have a $20 billion market cap now, something like that. Halliburton is another oil service provider, but they provide the equipment for all these companies, and a lot of these companies aren't going to be using that equipment anymore. So especially with all the acquisitions taking place. So I agree with you, man. I think there's going to be different segments within the oil industry that do good. I wouldn't say all oil is bad and everything's horrible, but there are going to be some players that do well and others that don't. And that's different from what we've been seeing pretty much since COVID started, where a whole sector, online, e-commerce going higher, technology going higher. And yeah, I think you're going to see some separation within these industries. And, getting into alt energy to finish this segment, I mean, I love your thoughts on this. I mean, the alternative energy. I wish you guys could be in the office when Dan and I talk about this because, I feel for him because the fact that I'm through 3 washing machines in 6 years because they have all these bells and whistles and use less water and all this stuff, but yet they break immediately. And after a year, they don't have the parts and they say, sorry, we don't have those parts anymore, which means we have to buy a new one. I mean, it seems like everything breaks a lot. My bottle of water doesn't stand up anymore. It just falls over. So because of the plastic that's being used, it is a little frustrating. But your thoughts are pretty funny when it comes to alternative energy.
Yeah, I just don't understand why. I don't understand the passion behind it. I mean, a lot of people that push it think, well, we're ruining the earth and you got to get off oil and all that stuff. Obviously, I don't agree with that at all. And it just shocks me when you have abundance of reliable energy that we can use in very clean ways, natural gas and all that. It surprises me on how little that gets looked at. I mean, the push. So that's another one with Goldman Sachs had a good one today about a note with higher stimulus, and obviously if Democrats get in, they're going to have more stimulus go towards more of their favorable projects than Republicans. Alternative energy, wind, that's up there for them, and they're going to go push those agendas. Selfishly, we'll look at who's a big player there and how you can make money off all that, because if they're going to throw good money after bad, you don't have to be in it the whole time, but it's an opportunity to look at something and make money. So they set the rules, and we have to either play by them and look into where they're telling us to look, or we have to sit there and be upset with how reality is.
Yeah, and the reason why I just mentioned you to say that, because I know, everyone has strong opinions on a lot of different subjects, whether it's immigration or whatever. I know, what you did with alternative energy, but the bottom line is it's really not about your opinion. It's about what's going to happen. And if Biden gets elected, which he is leading in the polls, which is almost guaranteed to happen if you listen to everyone out there, if it happens, you're going to see a lot of money push into alternative energy. So whether you believe it or not, you should be positioning yourself in some of these things. And they have been going higher along with, marijuana stocks because, conservatives don't believe in marijuana still, which is insane, even though the studies out there are incredible. Just the health benefits are pretty incredible. Not to mention the biggest health benefit for marijuana is probably relaxation. in a world where everyone is pissed off. I mean, it's kind of funny, right? I mean, everybody's really, really, really pissed off. I think the whole world would be better if they just smoked a joint and relaxed.
Everybody has to go on Joe Rogan and hang out with him.
Yeah, just relax a little bit, enjoy yourself, live your life. Everybody's just so freaking angry, but you're going to see, marijuana stocks catch a bid, which they're kind of cyclical to the, I wouldn't say towards the economy type thing, but cyclical when it comes to, politics and elections, where they usually rise around this time and go higher, and more, states are out there. They're going to try to prove this thing. And, especially for medicinal purposes, where we have lots of states approving it for medicinal, but, recreational is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And states are going to have no choice, considering the tax revenues down considerably. And this is the easiest way. I mean, look at Colorado. Look at the numbers. The easiest way to generate more money. But, these are the sectors that you should be looking at. But overall, what's going to happen even if it's a Trump win, interest rates are staying low, more stimulus is on the way. It is going to benefit a lot of companies. We're going to see the economy open up. We're probably going to get a vaccine by the end of this year. I'd be surprised if it doesn't come by the end of November, right after the elections. And, that's going to result in sentiment changing. So position